First of all, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself if you wouldn't mind, sir.
My name's Joel Leonard.
And Joel, tell me about your mission in life, your recent mission in life.
Well, they call me the maker's maker because I'm going around the country. I'm real concerned. For the last 15 years, I've been active. My life's mission has been to build the next generation of skilled technicians. Because my generation and the amount of jobs are a lot more technical, and my generation's getting ready to depart. And our kids haven't been actively, they don't have shop classes anymore. We have demeaned the trades where the parents don't encourage people to pursue those opportunities and pursue those skills. And we're in severe deficits all over the country in critical career paths that aren't necessarily glorified but are critical to our economy. We've got to deepen the appreciation and skill sets, and that's why the maker movement ties into what I've been trying to do. I've served as the chairman of the National Defense Manufacturing Workforce Committee, and we've got major corporations that are struggling to find core needs, and we've got to address that.
Awesome. And in your travels, I expect you've seen commonalities between spaces, shared problems that different spaces have. Are there things that kind of stand out to you as kind of some of the issues that maker spaces around the country have to address?
Yeah, what's interesting is a lot of them are doing different things. They're in different locations. They've got different assets or capabilities for depending on where they're at. I mean, it's in Wichita, Kansas, for example, they've got a lot of aircraft resources there because of their kind of the aircraft hub. And you've got people in Boston that have all kinds of technical resources there because of MIT and all the other colleges there. But one of the common issues is building a collective sense of direction and commonality, because the sense of community and the culture is absolutely the predominant challenge everybody has to deal with, regardless of the machines, regardless of the tools. Getting a culture where you've got a culture where people are encouraged to clean up. I mean, these kind of things are they can destroy, and you know, you've got sparks and you've got sawdust in the same room. You've got some volatility.
Yes, sir.
And if it's a volunteer group, you've got to have folks that are more than willing to not just make their own project, but willing to help the community and clean up and do some of the undesired task, at least occasionally, and because it is the community's resource. It's not their garage, and so it's something we've got to build that sense of service, that not just their own little project, and that's hard. That's very hard.
Very difficult,
and especially when they're putting their own money into it. And another issue that I see is the consumerism mentality. Where people, once you take money from somebody, they expect you to do the work for them. You're their servant, and so and they expect to be able to tell you what to do because you took their money. And if you don't do it, they're constantly throwing in your face they're going to quit, or they're just going to go ahead and quit. And that consumerism is destructive and corrosive, and we've got to get them to think beyond a consumer, but think in a membership mentality, because this is their space. This is a community space, and they're active, and they've got to. If they want it cleaned up, they've got to contribute.
I got you. I understand that too. Tell me about, like, one of the common problems that I think a lot of spaces have are people bringing in projects and abandoning projects. We're getting ready to move right now. Well, so, you know, part of it is, I think for spaces, is having a shared vision of what the space is like. And one of the things that I know that we've struggled with here is, you know, kind of a lack of shared vision. There's a lot of different ideas about what the space is supposed to be. You know, when we first started, one of my thoughts was this is going to be a economic development engine for the city. Well, it hasn't been that. You know, we've had a couple of successes where people have you know, started businesses, but in both cases they moved out of town to where they could get better funding and cheaper rent and stuff like that. So, you know, there's a lot of discussion about what we are exactly, and I know that our board is planning to have a retreat to work on mission statement to try to figure out the mission statement for the organization, which is which is a important thing. I think.
Absolutely, and get everybody to have input into that mission statement, and also input into the strategies and tactics that are engaged. Again, to be an economic development group, I love this space, and I'm looking forward to seeing your other space. But some maker spaces to get into the community and be an economic contributor. Hosting a job fair is not that hard. And if you had employers scattered throughout the facility here, your members could have first access to those employers, and then the rest of the public could come in and get exposed. That gets you more exposure to the community, and the employers in the area that may or may not know what's going on here, they might be more willing to support you. They also might be able to donate some equipment, might be able to sponsor you. So a job fair for a makerspace, I've seen it. It makes a big difference.
Cool.
And you also can take credit if you're going for a grant. Anybody that got a connection that led to a job, you can take credit for that, put that in the application, and that builds your credentials to be able to receive the grant.
Awesome.
So that's a simple approach of doing this. And again, I'd encourage you to host makers celebrations of show and tells. You got some. I've already met some of your folks, and you got some very cool things that have come out of here that you told me. And if you had a show and tell, invite some of the manufacturing, some of the chamber folks, some of the Tallahassee being in where all the legislators come in, invite some of them to come in, see what's going on. Grants will emerge.
Well, we hope the next time you come, when we have a little bit more advance notice, if you come in, we'd like to host a dinner with some of our city officials and county officials, and invite them to come and be part of it. It's just we just didn't have enough time tonight.
Well, we understand, and I know. I mean, this was.
So we're gonna get you back here.
That's great. I love what you're doing. I love you. I think you're doing so much, and you definitely deserve to retire and step back. But we got to get some others to pick up the mantle and continue this forward.
We got good folks that are coming along, and I've got a lot of hope for the young folks. One other thing I'd like to ask you about, and then we'll take a break from this, but I wanted to ask you about staffing in maker spaces and the difference between volunteers and paid staff, and whether you think paid staff in spaces is significant, and if so, where the money ought to come from, and if volunteer staff is significant, how do we make that happen in a way that and you gave me some good advice on that card you gave me. I appreciate that too. But how we can recognize and encourage and support volunteer leadership.
Well, volunteers are doing it in the goodness of their heart. They just have a shared. They want to see something happen. Giving them a title. I had an event, and I did this setup, and had everything going. But at the day of the event, I could not do everything that I needed, and I needed help. So there were two young guys that never had. You go to an old person that's already got commitments and expectations. They got all kinds of experience, but they don't have the desire or the. When you're a young person, you got to prove to somebody that you're capable, and so they've got that ambition. They've got that. So I brought them in and gave them a title. Boy, it was like I ignited. It was like I was watching a movie where you knight somebody and a knave becomes one of the best fighters you got, because they now have recognition and they've got community and they can get in there and they got permission to do something. If you can go through phases of that to where, again, later on I had one of them that he was great to begin with, but later on he became a pain because he was overloaded and he felt like everybody was going to him. Well, you got to constantly rotate volunteers in. That's one approach. And again, getting youth. Some of these kids that nobody gives them permission or allows them to do anything. And if they're giving somebody an opportunity to contribute, they don't get that anywhere else most of the time. And so this is a great opportunity for them to use as opposed to compensation. You're giving them experience that they can be able to put on their resume. The other thing is your word and your reputation of being in the career or in the job circuit and in this community. You give them a reference that will help them big time. So if they can work with you as an intern or as a support in that capacity, then again, you host job fairs or you have business connections, you give them introductions, that helps get them going. So that's definitely how to get the volunteers set up. Now, some of the maker spaces I've encountered, one in particular, doesn't really like the, they have paid staff. They have certain things they have done, and they have gotten a reprieve from their landlord. That's what happened to us. We got a reprieve that from paying rent for a couple of months in order to get the staff on board. And then we paid them back once the staff became productive and recruited enough members and sponsors in order to pay that back. That's how that happened. But one of the maker spaces I went to expressed this challenge as well, is once somebody finds out that somebody's paid staff, they feel like they're entitled to tell them what to do. And they come up with a whole bunch of stuff that may or may not be important for them to do. And that's it. So what they do is they try to keep that somewhat subtle or stealth so that they can stay focused on their task at hand. Best thing I've seen in a makerspace is the old timers who still have a lot in the tank to contribute, who aren't sitting in a retirement home worried about their Social Security check and their family. They're out there in the workforce. There's a guy in New Jersey whose wife died. He's 78 years old, and he made in 2 days a belt sander that was an adjustable with a pull motor as the he recycled that. He took a bearing off a skateboard and he made an adjustable belt sander that you could get angles and things you can't do just normally. And this guy did this in 2 days, 78 years old.